Hello Engineer is a first on Stadia title that is currently available in early access on Google Stadia for the price of $19.99. It's a game that we really don't know all too much about outside of the trailers and descriptions that we were given earlier on in the year. So today I decided to actually check out the game for myself, and I'm here to give you my overall first impressions and to answer the question whether or not it's worth picking up on Google Stadia. But before I even begin to talk about the game, I need to make it very clear that this title is still in early access. And truth be told, it definitely feels that way. Some things just seem a little bit too confusing, and on top of that, some things could certainly use some more polish. But regardless, the game is still in a very much so playable state, and like I said, it's important to note that they did mark it correctly as early access. So with that clarification out of the way, what exactly is Hello Engineer? Well, to be frank, right now it feels mainly like a puzzle game. Each level you're giving a start and an end point, and your goal is to get your character from point A to point B. Do note that I did specifically say the character, because the vehicle doesn't actually need to cross the finish line for you to pass. Speaking of which, if you didn't know already, vehicles are a huge portion of this game. You'll be building them from scratch and connecting all the wiring so they work correctly. The game will teach you this throughout the first few stages, and it'll give you a tutorial step-by-step instruction play on what you need to do. Initially, I was a bit worried that it would be too much for me to actually deal with, but truth be told, once you learn the basics, you kind of piece everything together and it works really well, at least in a logical sense, but more on that later. Now you can actually build these vehicles from scratch and let your imagination run wild. Or your other choice is to use blueprints that you can find within the world as a base for your creation. This is genuinely a really nice touch because it actually makes the game much more accessible. And truth be told, if you're not into the whole creating things from scratch thing, it saves you a lot of time. But if you have plenty to spare and you really like going crazy with your creations, they do also include a sandbox mode for you to go wild in. If single player isn't your type of thing, there is also multiplayer, which what I would presume features co-op, as there is a separate PvP mode as well. And I'm saying presume because I actually haven't been able to test it out myself. The multiplayer does not actually feature matchmaking options. So yes, that means you actually need to know other people who have bought the game on Stadia to play with them and invite them into your own lobby. Personally, that's a bit of a bummer, as I'm a huge fan of matchmaking in any sort of multiplayer game, and I really hope that this is just because the title is in early access and it's a feature that is planned to be added later on. And that pretty much summarizes where the game is currently at right now. Like I said, it's kind of like a puzzle game where you're presented with a bunch of challenges that you have to overcome. To give you an example, one of the first levels has you actually making a vehicle that can hold on to rails to cross a river. In another, you might have to make sure that your vehicle is of a certain height so your vehicle doesn't actually drown within a river. And with that, I think you have a pretty good picture of what you can expect. It's all really cool and it's pretty fun concepts, but now it's time I need to talk a bit more about the negative side of things. But once again, the game is in early access, all of this is subject to change, and I wouldn't be surprised if they actually resolve a lot of my issues with the game by the time it's fully released. And to begin, we're going to be talking about the controller versus mouse and keyboard, because this is a game where mouse and keyboard really does feel really good to play on, but the controller not so much. I started off by using the Series X controller, and my first reaction is, why is the turning rate so slow? You can adjust this though in the options and settings menu. You can set it up to 150%, and at that point it felt pretty okay to me, at least until we got to the building section of the game. It became very clear really fast that they set it to such a slow turn radius so you can actually precisely pick where you're attaching a piece. But that comes at the cost of when you're not actually trying to pick a piece, everything just feels very slow and sluggish. So if you plan on picking this one up, I would highly advise that you're okay with playing it on the PC where you have access to a mouse and keyboard. Secondly, a lot of things still need some better labeling. When it comes to wiring things up, it's really hard to tell if you're wiring things correctly. Oftentimes, I found myself turning left and my vehicle going right, or hitting the gas and me going in reverse. It was pretty amusing the first time it happened, but it got pretty old the fifth and sixth time. And lastly, the way you actually connect parts together doesn't feel as fluid as you would want it to. Oftentimes I've found myself trying to position a part the correct way and then it snapping on in a completely different way. Now, it was always adjustable and fixable by rotating it and adjusting the axis of whatever I needed to get done. But as I stated, it just felt like it always took a little too much time to get things set properly the way I wanted them. And that's really the biggest complaint I have to say about this game. It's pretty cool, it's actually very interesting, and I could see a lot of people enjoying it. But it certainly lacks polish right now in early access, so if you want a polished experience, I would suggest you hold off until it's fully released. But if you don't mind dealing with some shortcomings and this style of game interests you, you can feel free to pick it up right now and you'd probably have a pretty good time. The $20 entry price also isn't that steep, so I can see a lot of people just making this a quick purchase. All in all though, I cannot wait to see how this game grows. It's a very different take on the whole Hello Neighbor franchise, and it's a very interesting one. Oh, and before ending it, I should also point out that the game does feature state share support for challenging other players to beat your best time, and also to share blueprints with players who have yet to unlock them. There's a lot of potential here if done right. If they can introduce some sort of way to create your own challenges, it would actually be a really cool experience with state share. But for now, Hello Engineer is exactly what I would describe as an okay early access title with potential to become good. Either way, that covers my overall first impressions and who I think this game is for and whether or not you should pick it up on Stadia. If you have any remaining questions about the game, do leave them down in the comment section below. And I ask, if you enjoyed this video or found it helpful at all, be sure to hit that like button as it really does help the channel out, and if you're wanting more content like this, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell as well. Thanks for watching. This has been The Virtual Cloud, giving you the latest and greatest in everything cloud gaming and VR related, and until next time, I'll catch you in the clouds.